Before we get to our show, here is a podcast we think you're going to love.
Are you afraid to watch Criminal Minds alone?
If so, you may need to listen to The Unknown Subject, a Criminal Minds podcast.
Join Kelly and Kelsey to relive all of the creepy, murdery intrigue as we watch every episode and provide live commentary on everything from Spencer Reed's fashion to Emily Prentice's badassery to the weird unsubs.
Plus, we're reviewing every episode, sharing fun facts about the show, and ranking everything from our favorite episodes of each season to our favorite BAU team members and most unforgettable guest stars.
Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen.
We're watching a new episode of Criminal Minds every week, so don't miss it.
Wheels up!
Hello, friends and enemies. It's time for Perhaps It's You, your favorite Unsolved Mysteries rewatch podcast. I'm Liz.
And I'm Samantha.
And I think your sound sounds pretty good, Samantha.
Okay. I hope it stays that way. I hate remote recording more than just about anything in the world.
Yeah, and yet we do it for you, 5 listeners.
Yeah, you're welcome. So if you listened to our last week's episode, you know that my audio was terrible, despite the fact that I folded myself in half like a pretzel and squeezed into a That's what you do when you're a podcaster. If you want good audio, apparently, is you go in a closet. Well, it didn't solve my problem. I think I am having a microphone issue. So today I'm using a different microphone that's not really meant for this, I don't think. So it probably sounds bad in a different way, I'm guessing, but we won't know until we're done recording. So, and it's not like I have another option anyway, because it's not like I have a cache of microphones to pull from. So I hope that
Look, we're trying. We're trying.
We're doing our best.
It's the best we can do. And if it's not good enough, oh well.
Yeah. Honestly, the fact that we're even recording anything, I feel like is, that's something by itself. So
the world is ending, and here we are talking about Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're welcome.
Is it the most insignificant thing in the world? Probably, but we're doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, I would say that you have to cling to every little bit of joy that you can find, but so far this has just been annoying. So no, in general we like doing it. It's just, man, yeah, remote recording has its own issues. I know people do this all the time. I do not understand why, and I never will. But we're here because, one day, in 5 years, we're going to be able to sit in the same room together.
Someday we'll be vaccinated.
Hopefully. Maybe we'll have to be in weird spacesuits, but
the audio quality will be great.
Well, they'll have built-in microphones probably. Because everyone, by the point the pandemic is so bad you have to wear a spacesuit at all times, everyone's going to be a podcaster. So it'll just have a built-in microphone in your protection suit.
I have nothing to that. You're right. It's probably true.
Obviously, I have complete faith in the free market, and the free market is going to come up with a solution to this problem. So, oh my God, I can't even say that. It just hurts. I feel physically ill now. Every so often, just to get a rise out of me, Mac will be like, well, white men are the only people you can discriminate against. And even though I know he's joking, it's still it still works every time.
Even just hearing that.
Just hearing the phrase out loud makes one of my eyes twitch. Just ugh. And then he just laughs and runs away, basically. He's like a little trickster elf. Just coming to troll me and then running off when it works every single time.
That is really, you get that in a marriage where it is just trolling each other constantly.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long road, so
I recently discovered that Travis hates the phrase "do me a solid." I have no idea his explanation for why he hates it, but now every time I need him to do something, I ask him to do me a solid.
Well, you have to. I mean,
He should never have let that information slip. If he didn't say, "Will you do me a solid and take the garbage out?"
It's so random too.
Very random.
I have to say, if I think about it, I don't like that phrase a lot either. Not to the point
I really
that it would.
about it until now. I mean, it's not my favorite phrase. It never really would have been on my radar if randomly he hadn't said that he didn't like it.
The word that I feel like makes me cringe the most is hubby.
Oh my god.
If someone's like, "Oh, me and my hubby," I'm just like, ugh. Like, I think I can't. I have like no poker face at all. It's very easy to see, unless I'm in like a true customer service zone. Like, you're gonna know what I'm thinking. And I feel like if someone was like, "It's just gonna be me and the hubby," then I'm just gonna be going like, ugh.
Just immediate vomit. Just
like, oh, gross. Like, I just ate something like that was a little bit spoiled. Blah. No thanks. Don't tell me about what you and your hubby are up to. That's disgusting. Do you have a like word or phrase like that? That's the one that comes to mind for me.
Well, I share your disdain for hubby. I feel like if I start saying if I start referring to Travis as my hubby, I'm gonna just be also putting live, laugh, love details on the wall. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not sure that I have a phrase that's unusual. Like everyone hates the word moist, right? Like that's obvious.
I don't care about. That's fine with me. I hate hubby way more. No, I don't care about moist. That's fine. But hubby, ugh.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I'm a fan. I'm right there with you on that one.
It's so gross. Amazing.
I suppose do you feel the same?
Oh, yes. I was like, there is another one that goes with that, and it's wifey. Yeah. No,
Nope.
gross. I think there's something like both so possessive and infantilizing about both of those words that it's
You're
just
right.
like, it's like you can just go like, well, this conversation's done, and I never need to speak to you again. Goodbye.
And I don't know why. I'm not even really that big of a fan of like referring to Travis as my husband. I tend to go towards spouse, and I'm
Yeah.
not even sure. Like, I don't know.
It seems kind of possessive or something.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm
sure.
not really a big fan of like referring, and I'll do it just because it's a natural.
Makes sense.
But
Yeah.
I don't even really like referring to him that way. Like, I'd rather call him by his name, or like if I have to, I'll say like my spouse or something. But definitely hubby is worse.
It just reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where Elaine's at that party and this woman keeps going, my fiance. Like, it's like weirdly braggy in some way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that was quite a tangent, but I like it. So let's do the audience a solid and
Get to the mystery.
yeah, you don't have any updates, do you?
I don't think so.
Look, we're alive. That's the update.
There's
We're
not
still
much.
here.
There's really not that much to update on.
We're
We're
still
still
here.
doing it.
We're still in Minnesota. It's snowy. We haven't see now that we're remote, we don't talk about the weather nearly as much. People aren't getting the true Minnesota experience.
That's true, because I don't have to drive in it to get to your house. I don't really have to drive in it at
Yeah.
all anymore, so it's nice.
You know what? It's been fine. It's just winter. I have
winter.
really no complaints. Yeah, it's been fine so far.
Yeah, and since I'm working from home now, I can't even when it does snow. It's fine because
You're
I
just
don't
like,
have to drive in it. I just
Yeah.
watch it out the window. So one of the benefits of working from home and being never going anywhere.
Yeah. All right, we are on season 6, episode 5. If you are following along at home, you can watch this on YouTube. You can watch this on Amazon with ads for some reason if you wanted to do that.
This episode, I felt so long. And I realized
Yeah.
it's because there's no updates. There's no like update segment in this. There's 4 mysteries and they take up the whole time. I felt like this episode was like 2 hours long, but it's just a normal length episode just without an unnecessary
There's no filler.
update. Yeah.
It's all killer, no filler. This
Exactly.
is how they all should be Unsolved Mysteries. But sometimes you're like, hey, remember that mystery we talked about like seasons ago? Well, here it is again. And then you go, fuck you.
Then I have to fast forward, and then it feels like the episode is like 30 minutes long. Yeah.
Yeah, this is quality. Okay, so we're starting off with a fraud. And I'm going to say that when I saw the still frame for this episode featuring a Hasidic Jewish man, I went, I don't trust Unsolved Mysteries to tell this story.
Mm-hmm.
We previously had a story that took place at a school, and it was not handled very well. But this, it's probably not great, but it was fine. It was not the nightmare that I expected to be entering, where I literally stopped it and then texted Samantha and then just decided, you know what I should really do right now is some online shopping. Because I don't want to watch this because I feel like it's just going to be, just so much cringe, so much like poorly aged bigotry, like
Mhm.
I wasn't sure quite where we were getting into, but it's not nearly as bad as I expected. So that's it's like the opposite of a content warning.
The bar tends to be low, but I would agree. I was so relieved when he told me this was your segment. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have.
You're like, great. I don't want to enter that quagmire. Well, okay. This is a fraud. This is about con artist Joseph Perskanowski, who stole up to $200 million from banking institutions around the world. Robert Stack calls him a study in paradox, which, okay, because he is also a Hasidic Jew. So his life seemed to be about half praying and half committing fraud.
Sure.
All right. Unsolved Mysteries claims that he uses the community's respectable reputation to serve as the perfect cover. I don't know about that. We can get more into that. Right. We start off with I don't even know who this person is. Who is this English guy that's like telling us about?
He's a reporter. I have no idea why. Maybe he wrote an article about it or something. I don't know what credentials he has to talk about this, but he talks about the Hasidic Jewish community like he's some sort of expert. But his title card is just reporter.
I was like, guy, you're not a Hasidic Jew.
No.
You cut your hair. I'm not sure why we're listening to you on this topic, but his mustache is somehow so English.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, it's like super flat. Does that make any sense?
I mean, it does. I saw it, so it does kind of make sense.
The cut and the like lack of density to this mustache. Where it's just like a silver, I don't know.
Did you name it?
Yes. Because it's so incredibly English, I called it the Argy Bargy. Which this guy doesn't really seem like he's getting in a lot of fights, but it's just
with a mustache like that though.
Yeah, I don't know, get a few pints in him. Maybe he's ready to throw down. Okay, so for some reason this reporter is telling us about Joseph. So him and his wife had a whopping 12 children, and they lived in a Hasidic community in Montreal. He supposedly ran an import-export business from the basement of his home, but really he was committing these banking schemes. So here's an example of a scheme. This seemed like maybe one of his first schemes. I'm not quite sure, from 1985. So this is what he would do. He would open his own bank. And in this example, he opened one on the island of, oh my God. Why don't I know how to pronounce anything? Did I go to school? Did I learn anything? And Angela? A Caribbean island. No, because it's a Caribbean island with lax banking laws. Okay. Anyway, that's where he opened his bank. You need the names of two principals to open a bank, but it was the 80s, so he just made those up. Those weren't real people. And for the founding of the bank, you need those fake people to sign something, but he just had stamps made of their signatures.
This poor guy. What was the name of the guy who helped him?
Oh my God. Alan Fingold.
He was apparently just starting out in his career. He was very naive. I understand, but at the same time, he was like, "Is it legal to use stamps for this type of document?" And he's like, "Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's fine."
Josephus was just like, "They're busy men. They can't come here and sign something. They're only starting their own bank." He hired this guy when he was 21, and like all of his professional experience, he had learned from a con man. So he didn't know any better. Fortunately, he doesn't like go to prison or anything.
Thank
It is
goodness.
kind of rude to have an unwitting accomplice in these frauds. I feel like that's actually my biggest complaint with this crime.
Yeah.
Is it was not fair to Alan. He should have found someone that wanted to do this as well, because he could have very easily left Alan in the lurch, going to prison for a very long time when he literally had no idea what was going on. Okay.
He's just in there stamping his forms. This is
Yeah.
fine.
He's just like filing paperwork and, thinking he's running this legit business, and little does he know. Okay, so the reason to open his own bank was that then he could issue banks cashier checks, which are taken much more seriously than personal checks. And then he would go to various banks and get cash advances based on the fraudulent checks. Smart. So smart. Okay. So this starts crashing down. He's eventually sued by a Japanese bank for $1 million. Whoops. And then he is pursued by the Canadian Mounties. There's a reenactment of him going to a bank and the bank being like, well, it's not really our policy to to make an advance on this because you haven't had an account here for 2 weeks. But apparently he was very persuasive, and I don't know, he could get people to like do things that the bank wouldn't normally do, but also because, he was working for this other bank, it was seen as like a professional interaction instead of just like some guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is happening in Canada, and they're eventually pursued by the Mounties. We hear from Alan Fingold, his unwitting accomplice, who was cleared of any wrongdoing and labeled as simply being naive, which I feel kind of bad for him. So there's a reenactment of them raiding Joseph's home, but they didn't find anything. Joseph had already fled with his wife and 10 of his children. His 2 oldest children would join them later. So they're like in the house saying to one of his sons, like, do you know what your dad's business is? And the guy's like, I don't know, business, which I feel like is exactly how I felt as a child. I was like, what does your dad do? I don't know, business. So after that, Joseph Abernowski isn't seen again, but somehow a Joseph Weiss starts operating very similar crimes. And we get a very cheesy graphic of a map of the globe, and we see that between 1990 and 1992, from various banking institutions, Joseph was able to fraud this amount of money. So in Sweden, from various banks, 19 million. Denmark, 39 million. The Netherlands, 32 million. England, 37 million.
It's honestly quite impressive.
It's so impressive. The US, 30 million. Australia, 35 million. So it was at least 190 million in fraud that they're like aware of, right? And part of the reason that he was getting away from it for a while is this guy had the balls to often negotiate with banks on his own behalf. So the banks actually like don't want to get bogged down in a trial and a whole legal proceeding. So he would like, I don't know if he would call them himself. He'd be like, look, I know I got an advance for 2 million. That's gone. You're not going to see that. But I can give you back 1 million if you drop the charges.
And most of the time they would do it. Like this reporter guy
Yes!
says, they would rather just get as much money back as possible versus going through the hassle and probably spending a lot of money as well.
Well, if he goes to prison, like they don't get any money, right? Yeah. Like probably he'll just be in prison. That doesn't help them. So it's like, all right, well, it's better to cut our losses and get 1 million back and just be out 1 million instead of being out 2 million. But the like reenactment of him on the phone, just like so casually being like, so this is what I can do for you, friend. Amazing.
And it does take a lot of balls.
Amazing to me. But this did not seem to work so well in the US and Canada, where there were warrants out for his arrest. This is where it gets very interesting to me. So what is he doing with all this money? $190 million in 80s money, not even like $190 million now. This is so much money, but there's no evidence that he's spending it on himself. So if the raid on his house that they show in the reenactment is at all accurate, like he's just living a simple life. I mean, he's got 12 children, and that probably takes some cash, but it's not like he's making extravagant purchases.
Right.
So the authorities believe that he was giving it to Jewish charities and also using it to benefit Hasidic communities by opening legitimate businesses with the money and then handing them over to the community once they became successful.
Yeah, I think Robert Stack calls him like a Robin Hood character.
It's kind of hard to fault.
Yeah.
I would like to know a little bit more about his motivations, and I don't know. It's kind of cool. Okay, so that's where it ends. Yeah, they're like, he sees himself as a Robin Hood figure, but really he's a very bad dude. And I was like, from taking money from banks? I don't know.
It doesn't seem that bad to me, but
Yeah, I feel bad for Alan. Maybe some other people got thrown under the bus in this process, but it seems kind of cool. Okay. So the update is, after more than 10 years on the run, Joseph Perskonowski was arrested in Israel. He was convicted of only 7 fraud charges in a court in Jerusalem where he served 7 years. He's still wanted by the FBI. However, the statute of limitations has run out on him in Canada. So I guess you could go to Canada and be okay. He couldn't come back here. Apparently, we would still arrest him, but I'm guessing he's not going to do that. It doesn't seem like that money was ever recovered, and it just, I guess, stayed in those communities. It's a very interesting story, actually.
I think so.
I was way better than what I was expecting. Not trusting, just not trusting Unsolved Mysteries to handle, I don't know, really anything well. Respectfully.
It's good to start out with the bar pretty low. If your expectations are low, you can allow Unsolved Mysteries to exceed them. I think it's generally a good way to handle it, especially in situations like this.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, are we ready for a kind of horrific missing persons case?
This is brutal. This is a good mystery, but a sad story, which is, I mean, that kind of sums up a lot of Unsolved Mysteries, but it's like a thrilling kind of case. It's just so sad.
I couldn't agree more. There's also a lot of names in here, so I'm going to do my best to keep everyone straight. So this is a missing persons case, and we're actually looking for 3 people at the time that the segment aired. Wendy, Cynthia, and Lisa. Cynthia Brito, Lisa Renee Craigier,
sure.
And Wendy Brito. So they are missing, and we are trying to find them. So here's the case details. So this case is even more chilling, I think, by who appears in the segment. We'll get to that. In the spring of 1987, Wendy Brito of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, was a divorced mother with a young daughter when she fell in love with a coworker named Chad No. They worked at a ice cream parlor together. The reenactment is kind of cute. They started going out. Chad appears in the episode. Her mother says that they hit it off fairly quickly and started a relationship, which is about the time that she got pregnant with her second child. At this point, they got married, and were married for about 3 or 4 weeks before Jonathan, her second child, was born. Unfortunately, just 1 month after Jonathan's birth, Wendy developed what they call in the episode a crippling case of multiple sclerosis and was hospitalized for nearly a year. I found another article that said that she fell into a coma. So she previously had like an undiagnosed case of MS, and but anyway, she fell into a coma and she was hospitalized for nearly a year, and she was diagnosed at that point with multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
And then Chad, who has a mustache but is a dirtbag, tells us that he didn't think he'd be able to raise 2 children on his own, so he filed for divorce while she was still, I'm not sure if she was still in the coma or not, but she was unable, because she was hospitalized, to fight in court for custody of Jonathan. So he filed for divorce and was awarded custody of their son.
What a dick move.
Yeah. He does not come off well in this segment at all. This is his quote. Of course, along with the MS, I didn't think that she would be able to help me raise my child. And instead of having 2 people or 2 children to deal with, I decided that it was best if we got a divorce and I raised my child on my own.
Wow.
So he couldn't be bothered to deal with her and, quote, in his words, deal with her and her other child.
This is his wife! I can't be bothered to deal with her.
That's
She's in
basically what he says, yes.
a coma? Never mind. Moving on.
Yeah, maybe don't get married then. I don't know. So frustrating. So Wendy,
Okay, did people used to go into comas more often?
maybe.
Because there's someone else in this episode that was in a coma. And it just seems like in the 80s, you might have been in a coma for a while. I don't understand.
I don't know. You're right. It does seem to come up a lot in Unsolved Mysteries, oddly.
To my knowledge, I don't know anyone who was in a coma, but it's starting to seem like that's statistically unlikely.
Same. So, like I said, Wendy was too sick to fight the divorce or the custody decision. For 2 years, she went through physical therapy to regain the ability to do simple tasks like eating and walking. But at that point, her life did start to take a positive turn, at least for a while. During this time, friends introduced her to a man named Leon Camp. They fell in love and were married, and Wendy's first child, Cynthia, lived with them. Slowly,
Okay.
Wendy's condition improved. We're
not going to talk about Leon's mustache.
Well, we probably do, because I'm assuming you gave it a name.
It's so big.
It's very large. It is like shockingly large.
It's comical. It's like if you are a child and you're at a bus stop and there's a poster and you go, I'm going to draw a mustache on that man. This might be the mustache that you draw on.
It's true. It looks almost fake.
I called it the make it stop. I hate it. But this guy, I think, is a dirtbag, so he's not going to win. It's probably going to the Archie Barchie.
I think almost everyone, other than the people that are missing in this episode,
I don't think he's eligible.
Dirtbags all around. So Wendy's condition improved, and she married this Leon Camp. Her daughter Cynthia lived with them, like I said, and so and at this point she started having visitations with Jonathan. Remember that Chad at this point still has full custody of Jonathan. He starts letting them have visitations, but then after a while, according to Wendy's mother, Chad began to, quote, sabotage the visits. She said that they would call, make an appointment with them, set up a time for Wendy to see him, and then when she got there, they just wouldn't be home. And then Chad starts to make these allegations that Jonathan was being sexually molested at Wendy and Leon's house. I don't know if this was ever substantiated. According to the Unsolved Mysteries wiki, there was an investigation done, and the investigation concluded that there wasn't molestation going on. But they obviously don't go into detail in the episode, so I have no idea what the situation was, but those allegations were out there, and at that point, they stopped allowing Jonathan to see Wendy at all. They cut off the visits completely. So there's
really messy custody situation.
Yeah, it's really terrible. So regardless, it's a bad situation. It's not going well, and these people aren't getting along. And so at this point, Wendy is not allowed to see Jonathan at all until eventually the court ordered that Wendy and Leon's visits resume, and they actually cited Chad in contempt because apparently there were court-ordered visits. And so the court stepped in and said, you have to start having these visits again. So for more than 6 months, though, Chad refused to allow Jonathan to visit. And then on May 29th, 1992, he had a sudden change of heart, supposedly. He called the house and offered Wendy to have his mother, Beverly, pick up Wendy and drive them to their house so that she could see Jonathan. And in the reenactment, she's so excited. Because she basically says over and over again, he's going to let me see Jonathan. He's going to let me see Jonathan, which is very heartbreaking. But Wendy can't drive because of her MS. So Chad's mom, Beverly, is going to go pick her up, supposedly, and bring her to his house. By the time that Beverly arrived, Leon had convinced his sister, Renee, this is Lisa Renee Krieger, to go with Wendy and Cynthia because he didn't trust Chad. So he's obviously in the segment, and he says that he kissed her goodbye, and they got into the car and left, and they waved, and that was the last time he saw them. So it was a long drive to Chad's home in Shamrock, Oklahoma. It was 115 miles, and it took over 2 hours. When the group arrived, Wendy called Leon and said that she had made it there all right, and that so they did get to the house. Chad in the episode says that like she didn't want to see Jonathan at all when she got there. That she mostly sat on the step and drank coffee, which seems weird because it seems like she was super excited to see Jonathan and hadn't seen him in a while. So he claims that he got there and wouldn't even interact.
Yeah, right. I don't believe that for a second.
No. So when it was time for Wendy to say goodbye to Jonathan, her, Cynthia, and Lisa climbed back into Beverly's car. Chad's grandmother, Ida, joined them for the ride back. I have no idea why. But Ida is also interviewed for the show and says that they basically fought the entire way back about all kinds of things. She said that she was poor company. She said she was, quote, unpleasant from the beginning. Sounds like
I'm not sure that's like the burn you think it is. She was unpleasant company. Therefore, I don't care that she's missing.
Yeah, it doesn't. Ida does not come off looking great in this segment either. I mean, we are looking for these people who are missing, and you were the last person to see them, and you're basically saying she was unpleasant to be around.
Look, she might be gone, and it's a blessing, because her company, not the best.
All three of these women, Wendy, Cynthia, and Lisa, are missing at this point. Beverly and Ida, not missing. So, yeah, anyway, you know where we're going with this. So, Ida says that Chad's mother later reported that the bickering continued for like a half hour into the drive. She said by the time they got to Chandler, Oklahoma, she had all that she could stand. So they pulled off into a Walmart parking lot and told the three women to get out. Beverly told police.
Yeah, wow, they're the bad company, not you kicking people out in random parking lots.
Yeah, so this was 45 miles from Wendy's home when Beverly ordered Wendy, Cynthia, and Lisa to get out of the car, and they returned home without them. They never called. They never asked anyone for help. It was as though they had dropped off of the face of the earth, according to Jackie Johnson with the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, super realistic story.
There was an aerial search. There were 4 or 5 airplanes. They didn't find any trace of these three women. Jackie Taylor, who is Wendy's mother, says that she was very dependent upon Leon. She had already called him twice. There's no way that she would have just left. All three of these women just completely disappeared.
What is the idea that they just like wandered off on foot and got eaten by bears? Like,
no idea. It seems obvious. So Beverly, Ida, and Chad are the main suspects. Ida denies the accusations. In the episode, she says, Beverly and I did not have anything to do with their disappearances, and I know this. I don't care whether they know it or not, or believe it, but I know it. Chad says there's no way that I or my grandma or my mother could have killed them or shipped them off somewhere.
Ships them off somewhere?
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to say.
Yes. So
there's no way that we tied them up, put them in bags, put them in the back of a shipping container, sealed that, like,
So in spite of these denials, 2 residents of Shamrock, Oklahoma have told authorities that they overheard Chad boasting that he killed Wendy, Cynthia, and Lisa, and that no one would ever find their bodies. And in Unsolved Mysteries, Chad says this: maybe in one of my drunken stupors, I might have popped off. Oh yeah, I did it. But there ain't no way I could have done something like that. I'm not a violent person.
Very believable.
So
I know that happens to me a lot. That I have a couple glasses of wine, and then I'm like,
talk about how you killed 3 people.
I'm like, who shot JFK? It was me, bitch. It was all me. I just start taking credit for murders I didn't commit. That's what happens when you get a couple drinks in me. Who does that? Who does that?
Well, so it should come as a surprise to no one that these people did it. because this is solved. Ida and Beverly were arrested and charged with arson in 2007. They served time in prison. In September of 2011, Ida died of cancer at the age of 82. So she was never officially charged in this case.
Fuck
However,
you, Ida.
on April 16th, 2013, the remains of Wendy, Cynthia, and Lisa were found buried 8 feet down in an unmarked grave in Pawnee County, Oklahoma. A Ruger revolver and a knife were also located next to the remains. DNA collected from Wendy's sister Kimberly confirmed the identities of Wendy and Cynthia. DNA evidence also confirmed the identity of Lisa. A coroner declared that they were victims of homicide. Wendy died of a gunshot and sharp force injuries. Cynthia died from, quote, homicidal violence of unspecified means, and Lisa died from gunshot wounds to the torso. Cynthia's remains still had duct tape attached to them. Grover Pruitt, who is Ida's son and Beverly's brother, was arrested on $500,000 bail that was reduced to $50,000. He allegedly led police to the remains, which were buried in a hole under a septic tank on property owned by the Pruitts. Around the time of the disappearances, Ida told him to dig a hole. She later told him to fill the hole in because, quote, there's bodies in there. Grover was charged with accessory to first-degree murder. He pled not guilty, and a judge later dismissed the case. He died on January 25th, 2017. Prior to his death, Grover made statements that Ida and Beverly had murdered Wendy, Cynthia, and Lisa. On March 28th, 2014, Beverly was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in association with this case. On January 20th, 2015, she pled no contest to helping in carrying out the murders. As a part of her plea bargain, she was sentenced to 15 years in prison and 15 years probation, and she was released from prison on January 7th, 2020.
Oh my god.
So it seems unlikely to me that Chad didn't know what was going on, but he was never charged in regards to this case. It was only Beverly. Ida was dead at that point, so really the only people that actually paid a price for this were Grover, the brother, and Beverly. So, yeah, this is a sad,
It's really
twisting. The whole thing is really just awful.
And for what?
Nothing.
Just because they didn't like them?
It seems like it.
Wow.
Yeah.
To bury someone under a septic tank, for some reason that seems real low to me.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay, well. Yeah, and you see them on Unsolved Mysteries, and then you go, oh.
That's the part that is the most chilling to me, I think, is that Ida definitely had something to do with it, and she's in the episode. I can't remember if Beverly was in the episode. I think she was. And then Chad was too. And he has to, if he wasn't involved, he had to have at least known what happened. So,
yeah.
Well, it's chilling.
Otherwise, wouldn't he be looking for them?
You would think.
Right? Wouldn't he be curious where they were if he didn't know?
I mean, he claims to not know in the episode, but of course he's going to say that. So right. Yeah, it's chilling to have them on the episode.
Ugh. Okay, so we do get a bit of a palate cleanser after that with A Lost Love.
Yes.
This is the story of, at the time, 45-year-old Dolores Brooks from Brooklyn, who was looking for a teacher she had as a teenager. At the time, she had moved to Brooklyn from a small town in North Carolina, and it was a big culture shock for her. She was kind of overwhelmed by New York and, just going through an awkward teenage phase in general. She was explaining that where she was from in North Carolina, people would come from miles around to see a 3-story building, and suddenly she was living in New York. So it was a big adjustment. So she started her first semester at Decatur Junior High in Bed-Stuy, and she was shocked by her classmates' rowdy behavior, which seems to be just throwing paper around.
Yeah, it really was not that rowdy.
I don't know. But there was also a new music teacher at this time, Madeline Strauss, who was also something of an outsider. Her class apparently really opened Dolores' eyes to the beauty of music, and she eventually became a friend with Madeline and would frequently visit her apartment that she shared with her father, which honestly I think is kind of weird, but whatever. And at least in the reenactment, Madeline is living in splendor. She has this super swanky apartment that's in a high rise overlooking Central Park. She seems to be living with all these fine antiques and stuff. I don't know. I'm not quite sure why she was teaching, but anyway. So over the next couple of years, Madeline took Dolores to chamber music concerts and other musical events, like high society kind of stuff, and would often lend her appropriate clothing to wear.
The fashion in this segment.
Yeah, I'm
It's
not
so good.
sure how accurate it is, but the person they picked to play Madeline is this like model.
Yeah.
You know, remember how you had a completely gorgeous junior high, middle school teacher? But I think it was to sort of give her this like, I don't know if it was like accurate, but it gave her this like, yeah, she's like, you know, from this other world, very upper class, right?
Right.
And Dolores explains that this was important. It sort of like changed her view of herself because she says once someone cares about you, your self-esteem automatically picks up. And her home situation at the time was not great.
Yeah.
So she felt more comfortable with herself because Dolores cared about her and saw value in her. So Dolores went on to graduate from junior high, but was later overwhelmed by her bad home life and ended up dropping out of school and running away from home. She became a ward of the state. In 1966, Dolores fell ill and was in a coma for a while, which is just like something you did. I mean, this was in the 60s. I don't know.
Something you did.
Something you did at the time. She did regain consciousness, obviously. She's talking to us in the segment, but she had partial amnesia, a favorite Unsolved Mysteries topic, as a result of her coma. So in 1967, she's stopped on the street by a woman who seems to know her and is very excited to see her, but she doesn't know who she is. And this happened a few more times, that she would be in the area and this woman would be like, "Oh my God, Dolores, it's so great to see you." And Dolores would just be like, "Yup." Because she doesn't understand who this woman is. And the woman was like, "Don't you remember me? I was your music teacher." And at least in the reenactment, Dolores is like, "Well, I hope I was a good student, but I gotta go."
That should be my reaction.
Yeah, because she doesn't remember all this other stuff.
Right.
So she did go on to finish school. She became a nurse and eventually moved to Chicago. So when she's in Chicago at a hospital, she bumps into someone from Brooklyn who also had gone to her school and was even in her music class. So in talking to this person, it like, you know, wakes up these memories, I guess, and she remembers Madeline and realizes that must have been the person who stopped her on the street. So she just wanted to thank Madeline and sort of apologize for not knowing who she was and say that, yes, she did, you know, her efforts weren't wasted. She did make a positive impact on her life. Unfortunately, we don't get an update to this.
Which is a bummer. I don't really want to watch stuff without an update.
I know. But the thing is, she had so much. She knew her name. She knew where she worked. Like, I have to assume they were able to find her, and maybe that just, like, didn't get back to Unsolved Mysteries.
That's true.
Because it doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't be able to find her at all. It's not like she went into hiding or something. She was just a teacher.
Right.
And she was apparently like rich and well connected. So it seems like, I don't know. Madeline, if you're listening, thanks for your good deeds.
Yes.
Okay. Now we have one last one from Samantha, which is very exciting.
I mean, there's part of the reenactment is exciting. I don't know that the story is exciting.
I should say it's a horrible murder.
Someone was murdered.
But the reenactments are very exciting. Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I apologize for being so uncouth there.
So this is an unexplained death. We are looking for the murderer of Soo Ya Kim. In 1981, Soo Young Kim and Soo Ya Yu were married in Seoul, South Korea. Soon after, they moved to the United States. For years, they worked in flea markets until they made enough money to open 2 stores. By 1991, they had settled in an apartment in Queens, New York, with their 2 sons and were successfully running both of their stores.
The most 90s apartment you ever saw.
I was going to mention the apartment.
Literally every single object in it off-white.
Everything is white.
They're not allowed to own a single thing of that's like colorful.
Everything was white.
If you weren't around at that time, I know Samantha wasn't, that was the height of class. To prove that you could have all this stuff that was immediately going to get dirty. So have like an all white or like all off white apartment was like, wow, we're rich now. We made it. Because seriously, in like the 80s, everything was like brown and gray and very drab. You think of it as this very colorful neon time, but the reason that like neon and bright colors were exciting was because everything else was like in a wood paneled room with just a TV on the floor. I'm not
Mustard
exaggerating.
colored.
Yes, I'm not exaggerating at all. So now we're going to like, oh, I don't have any of that crap. I live in a totally modern, all white apartment that's gonna look horrible in about 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the reenactment apartment is quite something. So unfortunately, this happy life was ruined on June 29th. Sue Ya dropped her 2 sons off at their grandmother's house and went shopping. When her husband came home at 8 p.m., she had not returned. He called all of her friends, but no one knew where she was. And then, I know this is the part that Liz wants to talk about, he and his brother later found her car parked in their parking garage with the engine stone cold. Liz, do you want to talk about the brother?
So the brother is played by everyone's favorite dreamboat, Daniel Day-Kim. This is like one of his big breaks. He's super young, and he's so beautiful that it's like the sun.
Very handsome.
It's like almost painful to look at him.
Yeah. He doesn't have a big role. He pretty much like he doesn't even speak. He just like he whispers to his reenactment brother in the car, but he steals the show for sure.
Oh my god, is he so beautiful?
Yeah,
I can't stand it.
This is more exciting to me than Matthew McConaughey. I feel like you
by far. By far. I knew that Matthew McConaughey got a start on Unsolved Mysteries, and I had seen those gifs about how he was not even wearing a shirt even back then. And I was like, ha ha ha. But I don't know. It's Matthew McConaughey. He's permanently oily. Like, I can't. He seems like he's just very sweaty to me. I can't get too excited about it. But this is important.
Yeah, this is important. This whole episode is worth it just for the like 40 seconds that Day-Kim is on the screen.
Oh my god. Yes.
And the brother's not the murderer either, so that helps.
Yeah, that's nice.
So
I mean, I would have forgiven him, but that is nice.
Yeah, it helps. So the next day, police asked Sue Young to come to the morgue where a young woman's body had been found. He identified the remains of the young woman as Sue Ya's. She had been murdered by 9 stab wounds from an unknown assailant. Her remains were coldly dumped in a trash dumpster in Bedford.
I think it's in Bed-Stuy, but Robert Stack says it like Bedford Stuyvesant or something. He like says it's
what
full
is
name.
this word? It is very strange. Okay.
I think it's just in Bed-Stuy, and Robert Stack is being like weirdly formal about it.
So although she was nude, there was no evidence of sexual assault. Police determined that she had been the victim of random violence. However, unlike some random crimes, police were able to find a witness. This, despite its seriousness, is really funny. So at around 3 a.m. before her body was found, a private security guard named Joe Jones witnessed an unidentified man early in the morning acting strangely around the garbage can where her body later was found. He told the man that he was not allowed to dump there, but the man offered him $20, so he agreed to allow him to do it.
I mean, yeah, this is the way the world works.
If you're a probably underpaid security guard and someone's like, come on, man, I'll give you $20, you just let me do this. He's like, yeah, all right, that's fine.
I mean, I don't understand inflation, but wouldn't that be like $50 now? Like,
it's more than 20, certainly.
Yeah, so you're just like, oh yeah, sure, all right, I'll look the other way. And he was like super casual about it. Like, well, obviously, he offered me $20, so I was like, yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah.
However, as the man handed Joe the money, he noticed that there was blood on his shirt, which he was immediately suspicious of. The man claimed that he had been in a fight, but based on the reenactment, it seems like he just kind of like clearly made that up off the top of his head. He was like, yeah, I was in a fight actually. That's why I have blood all over me.
Okay, it's nighttime. You're in an alley. You're by a dumpster. I realize this guy has a security guard, but even so this guy is like handing him money, and as he's handing him money, he's like, isn't that blood on your shirt?
Why are they covered in blood?
The scenario is getting like sketchier and sketchier by the second. And then he's like, yeah, I was in a fight. Which is like, I don't know. Does that mean you're gonna like attack me? Like that's not great either.
It had to have been a lot of blood because she was stabbed 9 times, and he's clearly uninjured. So if you were in a fight, you're covered in blood. Did you kill the other person? Like,
is that why you're here? Like
dumping something in a dumpster? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the man left, but Joe was still suspicious. He did get the license plate, but I'm not sure if that ever panned out for anything. He and his friend decided that they would look through the garbage, and unfortunately, they immediately saw a woman's hand.
Yeah.
He hailed a passing ambulance, but Suya had been dead for several hours. Joe gave a description of the man, his car, and the license plate. Investigators later found a match. It was a car that belonged to a Taiwanese exchange student who attended CW Post College in Long Island. The car was cold and apparently had not been driven for several hours, so it seems like it was probably stolen. There was also no evidence of blood in the car itself. Investigators do not believe that that student had anything to do with the case. So police began looking at the security guard as a suspect, but a lie detector test and other evidence made police believe that he had nothing to do with the murder either. The police
Thank
now...
God.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the security guard is black. It seems like this is a real, like, wrong place, wrong time situation.
I thought that too.
I'm glad he was cleared. If he really didn't have anything to do with it, which it seems like he didn't, I'm glad he was cleared quickly. Because
it definitely crossed my mind watching this episode that he dodged a bullet.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. You're like, oh fuck, no, because they're like, and then they started to look at him, and I was like, why would he make up all of this shit about this? Like, this story is too weird.
It's way too weird, and he's the one that like called the ambulance and called the police.
Yeah, yeah.
He
also just like seemed like a nice guy. That's evidence, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. He wasn't Chad from the last
right. He did. He came off well as a helpful guy that also just wanted $20.
So the police are now looking for leads in this murder. For nearly 2 years, husband Soo Young Kim stayed in the United States, but the memories of his wife proved too painful to bear. And in April of 1993, he shut down his businesses and returned with his 2 sons to South Korea. His wife's killer's identity is still a mystery. So unfortunately, this is unsolved.
Sad. The husband is like, he had to close the store and move because he had everything reminded of him his wife.
I know. It's so sad. And they had such, like, their businesses were doing well. They were, like, living the American dream.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to actually exist. So it's so horrible that she was just randomly murdered. And, yeah, it's terrible. And unfortunately, it's not solved, but there is some interesting information.
Okay.
So... in the years since the segment aired, viewers have made note of the similarity in appearance between the composite drawing of Suya's killer and that of infamous New York City serial killer Joel Rifkin. Joel was active around... He was active around the same time that Suya was killed, and at least one of his known victims was another Korean woman named Yun Lee. Who was around the same age as Suya. However, he has never been charged in this case, and some people have noted that Rifkin's chosen victims were typically sex workers, which did not fit Suya's profile. So it is still
like a convenient target in some way.
Serial killers do stray from their MOs, like that happens. So unfortunately, there's no actual evidence tying him to the case that is noted anywhere, and probably this is never going to be solved, unfortunately. But it is interesting.
I mean, it's such a random... I think Robert Stack called it, like, another senseless act of random violence. Yeah. And you're like, okay, Stack. Like, that's actually pretty rare that you would just go out living your normal day-to-day life and then get stabbed 9 times. That's not that common, Stack. But
that is what happened here.
Yes. So you kind of have to wonder, like, what person did she come across where this something so senseless?
Right, because she had no enemies. Like, no one wanted her dead. So who's going to kill her? Well, maybe a serial killer. I mean, it kind of tracks.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. I'm sorry that I acted like it was so great, because really I was just excited. But
I mean, that's the positive. So it's a sad case, but there is some levity in that you get to see Daniel Day Kim looking real fine.
Oh my God, so beautiful.
Yeah.
Did they make like teen beat posters of him I could just hang up around the podcasting room?
You might be able to find one.
I should look into that. That would be great. can motivate us.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's actually I think we've come to the end.
We have. We should probably rate it.
Okay, what are we gonna do first?
Mysteriousness.
Okay, pretty mysterious. We don't know what happened in this last case really at all.
Nope.
We never find that guy, despite there being a witness, which is kind of remarkable. And then the witness even like could remember specific things about the clothes he was wearing and
Right.
had this license plate. And he seems like a good, credible witness, and it still didn't pan out. We don't really know what happened to this teacher. I don't know that that's super mysterious. But then your first case for a long time was unsolved too.
Yeah. I think it's really mysterious.
Yeah, I would say thumbs way up for this one.
Up. Reenactments?
We have to say thumbs up. We have to.
I think we do.
Because I didn't know he was going to be in it. It was such a pleasant surprise. And I'm just beaming. Yes, thumbs way
They're
up.
good. They're definitely good. Fashion?
Not bad, but maybe not great either.
It's fine.
Yeah, thumbs sideways.
Sideways.
Like,
Pretty good mustaches, but most of them are on dirtbags, so we can't even give it that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm giving the MVM to the RG Bargy, but
He could have been a dirtbag for all we know.
Yeah, he's just some reporter guy. I don't even know why he was there.
Yeah. And Robert Stack?
I feel like he's a pretty solid presence in this episode.
I agree.
And I'm going to give him some credit for us getting 4 mysteries and no unnecessary updates. And I feel like his intros were good and not weird, like his one about the desert.
And the weird dirt.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything about fancy dirt, so thumbs up.
It's fancy dirt, you're right. Yeah, thumbs up for Robert Stack. This is overall a solid episode. On our Robert Stack scale of 0 to 5 Robert Stacks,
I feel
like higher than a 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like in terms of mysteries, it's 3.5, maybe 3. But does Daniel Day Kim bump it up?
He's gotta.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a 4.
I think a 4. Yeah, because I would recommend people watch this, even if it's only for Daniel Day Kim.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, a 4.
Just this silent, gorgeous figure in the background of all the reenactments, like at the store, and then at the end he has to like close the store because they're gonna move away. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right,
it's a 4.
That's a wrap on this episode. Are you gonna recommend something?
Yes, I am. Because I think I've hit a bit of a pandemic wall this week.
Oh, you and me both.
Samantha knows, where I was just like, fuck this, fuck everything. I'm so tired. It's just, to live the lives that we're living right now, you have to compartmentalize so much worry and put that to like the back of your mind while you just go about your life. And it's kind of draining.
Agreed.
Anyway, so one of the very few things that brought me any joy this week falls into the candle category.
Yes, as it often does.
So I ordered some candles from a shop on Etsy called Asian Boba Girl, which are bubble tea themed candles.
They're beautiful. They really, it made me want to drink one. They really do look like bubble tea when you sent me the picture.
The drawback is that it might make you want bubble tea, so keep that in mind. But they come in these really amazing scents. There's 3 categories. So there's milk tea candles, there's Asian snack candles, and then there's like miscellaneous, which is being called seasonal candles. So for milk tea, you can get like classic milk tea, jasmine tea, Thai tea. I got a taro milk tea, and it smells exactly like taro milk tea.
Oh my gosh.
The mini ones come in these super cute glass containers that look like little milk things. They're so cute. The bigger sizes come in like a jar or a glass, and honestly, I feel like are less cute. I'm sure they still smell good, and they have like little boba bubbles painted on the outside. The packaging is just like, so good. And so there's other flavors that I haven't tried that sound really good, like peach gummy, mango mochi ice cream, banana milk. I mean,
wonderful.
Seriously, like any of these, that's like, yes, I want my whole house to smell like, Vietnamese coffee. Like, what? This sounds so good to me. So I love my taro little candle. There's soy candles, if that matters to you. I don't know. This is at Etsy AsianBobaGirl.com, and I'm very happy with my candle, and it brought me some fleeting joy, which is really all we can ask for in this world. That's it. That's my update. Candles.
That's a really good recommendation, actually. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to buy some.
You should.
So, in stark contrast to my recommendation last week, I'm recommending something that's kind of fun and silly. It's a
Okay.
show that Travis and I have been watching that we're kind of obsessed with. It is the British game show, ostensibly it's a game show, called Taskmaster. And we can watch it if you're in the States like us. You can watch it for free on YouTube. It's on, and it's official. It's like the official Taskmaster YouTube channel. Most of the seasons are on there, and you can watch them completely free. That's how we've been watching. It's like I say, it's ostensibly a game show because it's a game show in the way that Whose Line Is It Anyway was a game show. If you watch that show and you remember Drew Carey's opening line, everything's made up and the points don't matter, this is exactly the same. So over the series, which there's like 8 to 10 episodes, sometimes more, I think, in a series, there's 5 contestants and 2 hosts. So Greg Davies and his like sidekick named Alex host the show. They're comedians. All of the contestants are comedians, and they compete each episode in a series of tasks that are silly and weird. Some examples of tasks that they've had to do are like they had to paint a picture of a horse while riding a horse. They're like
amazing,
completely silly. There's always a group task, so they'll have them in groups and they have to compete like in a it's always silly, it's always funny. And then over the course of the episode they are awarded points. Most of the points are kind of subjective based on what the hosts think, how the hosts think they did. And as the series goes on, the points add up until there's finally a winner. This show is so funny. At the first few episodes we watched, because we kind of stumbled upon it on YouTube, we were a little unsure because it is very British humor sometimes. But now that we've watched like 5 seasons, there's like, I think there's currently 10 seasons, maybe 11. We've watched like 5 or so seasons of this. It's like we're obsessed. We watch it almost every day. We laugh out loud, like belly laugh at least once every episode we watch. It's so funny. It's so silly. They did a season last year in 2020 during COVID. And it's funny because they clearly filmed it like half before COVID, half after COVID, because some of the tasks will be like social distance and some of them won't. So there was one in the latest episode we watched where it was a group challenge and each team had to feed each other the most watermelon. But one of the teams had to do the task after they had started social distancing, and so they had them like on these platforms 6 feet apart with these really long grabby claws, and they had to like feed each other watermelon with these grabby pinchy claw things. It sounds silly, and it is, and it's also really funny. So we're really enjoying it. You can watch it for free on YouTube. That's really all I have. It's a simple premise, a simple show, but it's really funny. All the comedians are hilarious. And there's enough seasons that you can really get a lot of binging in. Which
that's a solid recommendation. Free entertainment.
Yeah. I like recommendations for free entertainment, especially things that are funny and silly.
I think we could all use a laugh. So
agreed.
I am super excited that Riverdale comes back next week.
Oh yeah.
That's like all I care about right now.
We gotta take what we can get in these trying times.
That's also silly, but in another way.
Sure.
I feel like maybe I had updates about something else we'd recommended, and now I can't remember. So
it doesn't matter.
You know what? Very little does.
That's true.
Very little does.
It's very true.
But you can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram. We have several Facebook groups.
We're pretty big time.
Yeah, you should definitely be in our Animal Crossing one if you want to meet Wart Jr.
Hell yeah.
my prize villager. We have a website, perhapsitsyou.com. If you have a paranormal tale, or if you've had a psychic dream, perhaps it's you podcast at gmail.com. You should write us a 5-star review. You should slam that subscribe button so hard.
Remember when we talked about phrases we don't like?
Yeah.
Earlier in this episode, I think slam that subscribe button.
It's pretty bad.
Might be one of mine.
It's pretty awful, and I might be saying it every episode now.
What else do we need to plug? Do we plug the
Give-
Patreon? You can give us some money
No.
on Patreon and get bonus content. We got quite a few episodes out now.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal at this point. If you find $1 and like some old jeans or something, you should probably give it to us and then get a bunch of bonus episodes.
Hell yeah.
We're going to be doing the last of the Unsolved Mysteries reboot this month. And then next month, we might do another Paranormal Home Inspectors. But also, John Waters was on Special Victims Unit recently playing a pornographer. And I'm pretty sure we have to talk about that too.
I think it would be funny for us to do a modern SVU episode, considering neither of us have watched that show.
No, we'll have no idea what's going on.
We'll be really
watch
funny.
it totally out of context just for some John Waters fandom. I think that's a great idea. So that's what we'll have probably upcoming on the Patreon world if you give us a single $1.
It is a good deal.
It is. We try our darndest. We need some more 5-star reviews. I'm going to stop doing this stupid podcast. Okay, I think that's everything. I think we survived yet another episode. Thanks for the support, everybody.
Thank you.
Keep barking.
Bye.
Bye.